Hey everybody, welcome to the Fantasy Alarm live stream. I'm John Mpemba, alongside with us as always, James Grande. James, wrapping up week two of the NFL season. And for me personally, today was a pretty nice day. My New England Patriots acquiring Josh Gordon. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but how did your weekend go?
My weekend went well. It was a rough sports weekend for me. My guy Gennady Golovkin took a tough loss in boxing. My Giants lost last night. I can't say my DFS lineups were very great. I had some good plays, but there were a lot of flops this weekend. A lot of flops. So I'm just happy to be moving on to a new week in sports after tonight. I'm just going to throw that all out there.
Yeah. Well, there's still one game left. You can
Right.
kind of try to recoup some of those DFS losses in the Monday Night Showdown, those Seattle Seahawks and Chicago Bears. But again, like I said, before we touch upon any of that, it's time for me to talk about these Patriots getting Josh Gordon. The Browns and them, it seemed like they were destined to part ways.
Right.
He missed a lot of training camp. Dealing with his own issues. Getting his mental state right, which is good for him. And then, Hugh Jackson kind of said that he wasn't sure if he was even going to crack the lineup in week one. Ends up playing, has 3 targets, catches a touchdown, practices all week perfectly fine. And then something happens where he shows up on Saturday, apparently, late to practice, complaining about an injured hamstring. Reports are that team officials felt he didn't see him right. And at that point, on Sunday, we find out that Josh Gordon's going to be inactive and the team is planning to release him on Monday. All the vultures swoop in to try to get trade offers. All the tweets get sent out. Can't wait for Josh Gordon to end up in the Patriots. Ha ha ha. Meanwhile, it happened.
It actually was happening the
It
whole
was
time.
actually happening the whole time. New England sends a 5th-round pick to Cleveland with the caveat that if he doesn't play at least 10 games, Cleveland then has to send New England a 7th-round pick back. So this could end up just being New England trading a 5th-round pick for a 7th-round pick. Who knows? What's your quick take on Josh Gordon joining New England? How do you think he's going to fare from your perspective? And then I'll give you what I think is going to happen.
From a trade perspective, the Patriots, they have no. They're not really taking any risk. If Gordon doesn't pan out and doesn't play the 10 games, they get a draft pick back anyway. And we've seen what the Patriots have done with 7th-round picks in the past, right? So, that's something to note. I think we've seen Brady do very well with downfield options and always, right? Just look at Brandon Cooks from last year. Obviously, Cooks didn't pan out the way everyone thought he would, but he averaged 16 point yards per reception, which was a career high. So that's something that we can look forward to if Gordon, can work his way into the rotation. I think he's going to be that downfield option for Brady. The issue I have that I couldn't believe, that breakout season that Gordon had was in 2013.
Yeah, long time ago.
That is 5. It's kind of crazy how time just passes you by. I felt like it was just 2 years ago, maybe 3 max. But if you look, it was literally 2013. So that is a little alarming to me. 5 years of basically just pitter-pattering and a couple games here, a couple games there, suspension. So obviously I want to see him get reps. We need to see the reps, but there's nothing like playing with Tom Brady. So, yeah. I think it's a great pickup from the Patriots point of view.
Yeah, and he's played 11 games since 2013, the season you're talking about. In that 2013 season, I'll refresh everybody's memories there, 14 games, 1,646 yards, 9 touchdowns.
Insane.
He had back-to-back 200-yard games during that season as well, just insane numbers. But yeah, like you said, the layoff is something to worry about, but he's still only 27 years old. This isn't a guy in his mid-30s who maybe could be washed up. He got a touchdown pass in week 1, so this is a guy with limited preseason training, was working out but didn't really get any games. Was able to get on the field, beat 2 defenders, caught a nice touchdown pass, so there's still hope there. And yeah, I somewhat agree with you there. There's no risk. He's only making $700,000. So if New England has to cut him, no real loss. Yeah, well, no kidding. But no loss of money there in terms of financial issues. So yeah, right. If it doesn't work out, they let him go. New England had to cut Corey Coleman, who the Browns also released this year, to make room for Josh Gordon. But to me, I think that, again, this is really only an upside play. If Gordon is able to get on the field, which reports are today that he got his hamstring looked at, was okay. Obviously, people are questioning whether he even really had a sore hamstring to begin with. So he could be on the field as soon as this Sunday night against Detroit. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people, if he's active, taking flyers on him. How interested are you in maybe now acquiring Josh Gordon if you're in like a season-long league? Does he interest you?
I mean, I think he has to. I wouldn't go overboard with who I give up. I wouldn't go give up any type of running back that, I start on a week-to-week basis. I don't think, especially how scarce running back. But, I mean, if we're looking at we have wide receiver depth, if we have 3 to 4 really solid wide receivers on our roster, I don't think it hurts to have Gordon as a wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5, especially come bye week. If we see him kind of revert back to what we saw in the past, like obviously, and from a DFS perspective, I'm holding off on using him in any type of format like DFS related until we obviously see some groundwork. But from we get to stash in season long. So I mean, I have no problem doing. I mean, listen, man, the Patriots projected number 1 receiver in Chris Hogan has 10 targets through 2 games and just 4 receptions. So there needs to. I think they needed the spark. Even if it doesn't pan out, it's kind of like they took a shot on Corey Coleman. Yeah. Obviously, that didn't work. Now they're taking basically no risk and high reward in Josh Gordon. I think it's a great decision, and I think from a season long perspective, he's definitely someone you want to. Look, I mean, the thing is though, like I feel like so many people out there overvalue Josh Gordon and always have. Yeah. I mean, just look at his ADP from this year with like you said, no like off-season anything. And he was still being drafted.
He was like a 4th or 5th rounder, right?
Yeah. And he's still being drafted ridiculously high. So, I mean, I feel like it's going to be hard to go out and acquire Josh Gordon because people have such like this love affair with him. But if there's someone shopping him, I think he's worth the flyer.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with that. And like you said, you brought up a good point with, the Patriots receiving core. Chris Hogan is not a number 1 receiver. Right. The reason, the Patriots offense worked well last year with the Brandon Cooks being able to be that downfield threat. Then you send Hogan sort of in the middle depth of the field, post, whatever. Julian Edelman goes the unders, and Gronkowski kind of runs the seam. That's sort of the majority of the way the Patriots run their offense. Well, now you can kind of put Hogan back to what he does better. If Josh Gordon can get on the field and be that Brandon Cooks down the field type guy, then he demands attention. And that just opens up the entire rest of the offense. Seeing Phil Dorsett really emerge of late, he's been like the leading receiver on the team. I think if anything, this bumps Cordell Patterson probably out of the rotation, because he hasn't really done much of anything, and he's not as involved in the offense anyway. So for me, it'll be interesting to see. I kind of agree with you there. Just looking at some recent ownerships on Josh Gordon to see maybe he's available in leagues. 6% of people dropped Josh Gordon over the last week, and 11% on Yahoo leagues dropped him. So people recently dropped him with this news coming out that he was going to be cut. Well, now he's on the Patriots. Check your leagues. He's available in about 10 to 15% of fantasy leagues right now. Check your waiver wires. Spend your fab money. Not don't go crazy, but what, like $10? Would you spend $10 if you had $100? Yeah, $10% of your budget maybe on a flyer with Josh Gordon. That's probably where I'd be at. But that's enough talking about New England. Let's talk about the game that is tonight. We have the Seattle Seahawks coming into Chicago, face the Bears, the upstart Bears there, Mitch Trubisky, Jordan Howard, that offense there, Allen Robinson, and then they have Seattle coming in, who's losing their top receiver, Doug Baldwin, to a knee injury. That offense kind of looks in shambles. The offensive line we know is terrible. The defense isn't what it used to be. What's your take on this game? How do you see it sort of playing out?
I mean, I think there is a 43.5 total for a reason here. I don't think this is going to be an overly exciting game. I mean, I think there are very exciting prospects in this game. We're going to see Tyler Lockett try to be a number 1 receiver. Maybe we'll get the breakout of Trey Burton that we all expected when he got a $32 million contract this offseason. So there are exciting pieces to this game, but I think I'm thinking with Vegas. I think it's going to be a low-scoring, defensive oriented game. Trubisky threw all these passes last week and still he couldn't even muster 200 yards. Oh. Russell Wilson lost his number one target, and his running backs are a disaster. So I don't think there's going to be much offense, but I'm excited. Like you said, I need to make some money back for my losses this weekend, so I'm still going to definitely take part in tonight's showdown.
Yeah, for sure. You talked about Trey Burton maybe having that breakout. I think we all saw the screen grab. I know Brandon Marion Lee, who's a big Trey Burton truther, she tweeted it out of Trey Burton basically doing jumping jacks wide open in the end zone, and Mitch Trubisky just looking nowhere near him. Right. So missed opportunity on the touchdown there, but he did have 6 targets last week against Green Bay, so some upside there, I think, as well. For me, I'm kind of keying in on Brandon Marshall, potential revenge game narrative. I'm a big narrative guy. If any of you listen to, the basketball podcast that James and I do during the NBA season, I'm all about the narrative. So give me a Brandon Marshall revenge game against Chicago where it just did not end well for him.
Right.
And the fact that he was okay. 3 catches on 6 targets, 46 yards and a touchdown, had a pretty decent preseason as well. So I think Brandon Marshall could potentially be a nice little pickup here in this game. And if, we're focusing here on the Monday night showdown on DraftKings where, James and I play a lot, but FanDuel sort of offers the same contest. They have that, MVP slot, the 1.5 point total. For me, I think Brandon Marshall's the guy I'm putting in there.
Yeah, and he actually had a second touchdown week 1 that was called off because he did a classic Brandon Marshall push off, which he's done literally his entire career in the red zone, and he gets away with half of them and doesn't. So he could have had potentially even a bigger game. I think something else to note, he had 3 first downs in week 1. So I think now that, Baldwin is officially listed out, we don't even have to worry about him. I think Marshall's going to become more of the, moving the chains guy as well. Kind of like we've seen with Quincy Enunwa over in New York. Like, that guy is just catching first down after first down. I think Marshall's going to be that security blanket. I don't really see Tyler Lockett as that security blanket. I don't think Will Dissly is going to be any type
crazy.
of and I'm not expecting that again. So the reliable options that Russell Wilson has are very slim. So I think you're spot on. I think he's going to be really popular because of that reason. But I think it's we're having in a 1-game slate. You do need to get some chalk in there, right? Mm-hmm. You have to, because you miss on a 1-game slate, you lose. You're not even gonna cash, let alone win any type of tournament. So I think he's gonna be really, really nice play tonight in either site you use him.
Yeah, and with Lockett, he's somebody that we've kind of all been waiting to break out for, seems like a couple of years now, with the wide receiver situations that they've had in Seattle in the past. Obviously, Doug Baldwin was always the unquestioned number 1, but it seems like since he was drafted, sort of this was like, Tyler Lockett's going to be the number 2 this year, breakout number 2. Right. And it just hasn't been. He's been the same guy. And now he's forcing the situation where everybody's like, oh, Doug Baldwin's out. Well, Tyler Lockett's obviously going to be the number 1 receiver. Well, nothing has ever proven this guy can be the number 2 receiver consistently. Why all of a sudden is he going to be the number 1? I'm going to go with Marshall. Hopefully he stays healthy. But Lockett's not a terrible play in this sort of format either, if we're talking about, again, daily 1-day tournaments, because he's a big play guy. We saw it with the 51-yard touchdown against Denver last week. He got the touchdown there with only 4 targets in that game. You talked about Will Dissly. I can't imagine him having that type of game. I know the tight end whisperer last week, Howard Bender, had talked about Nick Vannett as sort of the tight end there in Seattle to go to. Turned out to be Will Dissly. So maybe one of those 2 guys will step up for them. But, yeah, it's pretty barren if you look at the wide receivers there in Seattle. Jaron Brown, he had 3 targets, but for 7 yards. If you want to take a flyer there, he's very cheap tonight. That was the guy that, when I used to roster John Brown in Arizona, and you'd see Jay Brown with the catch, and it would always be the other one. It would always I'd always get upset there. Other than the Seattle side, in Chicago, who are you looking at today?
Well, something I've been thinking about basically since Baldwin got hurt, and I feel like Russell Wilson rushing the ball only twice is a little is an anomaly, right? I think something that we could see tonight is Russell Wilson use his legs way more frequently than we saw him in week 1 because Chris Carson and Rashad Penny had 14 carries combined, and Carson did look good. He had a nice 25-yard run and 6 carries for 25 yards the rest of the day. So it wasn't terrible, but Wilson is way too good and way too valuable in the running game to just use him so scarcely. I mean, I think this could be a really big outing for him on the ground, as well as passing. I mean, 300 yards with no one to throw the ball to. Right. So I think we're going to get more balanced, a more balanced Russell Wilson, someone we've seen have huge rushing games in the past. So I just want to throw that out there. I think, he's not just he's such a dual threat. I think we have to. Yeah. That's why he's $1,800.
Yeah, if you're going to use him as your MVP, it's $1,800, $1,200 if you're going to use him as your flex, top price player on DraftKings. But he's going to do a lot of running today because I envision Khalil Mack is going to have a field day, right. A field day with that offensive line. So yeah, it might be smart for Seattle to do some rollouts there, get him running away from where Mack's going to be, and try to get him to throw on the run, something he's done pretty successfully. If you want to stick with Seattle, I think Rashad Penny could be an interesting play here. Right. 4 catches on 5 targets last week. PPR guy, pretty cheap. You mentioned Chris Carson. Those two kind of split carries because they were, trailing in that game for a little bit, so they didn't really run the ball a lot. Plus, their offensive line is still garbage, so I don't imagine running backs really doing well for them anyways. But yeah, let's move on to the Chicago side. You talked about Trey Burton. If you were to, pick a MVP from Chicago, who are you looking at?
I mean, I think it's Jordan Howard. I don't think it's close. Mainly because we expected Tariq Cohen to come into the year and be the pass catcher, the third down back. And we saw Jordan Howard out. He had more receptions and more targets in week 1. He out-touched him 20-7, 20-10. And I think the rushing attempts are going to be even greater this week. I mean, we saw Seattle give up 146 yards on the ground in week 1. So I think Jordan Howard's going to have a monster game here. I think he is going to be my 1.5 times MVP over on DraftKings. The 1,500 doesn't scare me. Seattle's defense doesn't scare me. And I just love the fact that he was involved the way he was in the pass game. I mean, I don't know. Everyone loves Tariq Cohen pass, but if Jordan Howard's going to out, there's no point in even, Tariq Cohen playing Tariq Cohen. Right? I mean, if Jordan Howard's going to, I understand it, but it's just he's being so heavily used, and now we're getting a matchup where the Bears are going to exploit on the ground. I think Howard's my no-brainer play.
Yep. I love Jordan Howard. He was a guy that I've been on all off-season leading into this year. And it's not too surprising to me, at least, to see Jordan Howard start catching these footballs because Matt Nagy told you this was going to happen.
Right.
All off-season he talked about the fact that Jordan Howard was improving his pass catching. He believes he could be a 3-down back. And everybody was just like, well, Tariq Cohen's there. There's no way that they're just going to not use Tariq Cohen, right? Because for whatever reason, everybody just loves Tariq Cohen. And I could see Tariq Cohen being a little bit popular tonight just because of what we saw Phillip Lindsay do last week against Seattle. Now, they're obviously not the same player, but people are sort of comparing Lindsay's out-of-nowhere breakout week 1 last week to Tariq Cohen. Lindsay backed it up again this week at another big game. Proved me wrong. I sort of thought that was flukish. I called him sort of the Tariq Cohen of 2018, and he proved me wrong. But if you're talking about a quick little scat back like that can catch the ball in the backfield, Cohen fits that mold. Not to say that he's going to have the same level of success, but this offense is kind of a run-first offense. They have the offensive line. There's nobody in that Seattle defense really anymore aside from Earl Thomas.
He's a beast, huh? Oh my God.
He came back after.
He's a freak of nature.
He had a pick 6, right?
Was it a pick 6?
I think it was a pick 6 after not pretty much saying he wasn't going to play at all.
He's a freak of nature.
Shows up on Sunday and suits up. But yes, I can see Cohen being a little bit interesting for that matter, but definitely like the 2 running backs. The receivers, like I said, scared me a little bit because you don't know what you're going to get out of Trubisky. But again, this defense was carved up, by Case Keenum. Yeah, he threw 3 picks, but he threw 3 touchdowns last week as well. They're going to be on. They're at home. The Seattle defense doesn't travel well. Historically, hasn't traveled well, even when they were the Legion of Boom. So now they're not that. And so it'll be interesting, I guess, sort of to see there. If I had to pick a receiver, I think I'm going to go with. We'll go with Allen Robinson.
You have to, yeah.
7 targets, 4 catches, 61 yards. I got to think that Trubisky's really going to try to feed him and get that chemistry going. So for me, I think Robinson and Howard are the top 2 guys. If I'm going down, I kind of like Cohen as maybe a sneaky play, but I don't think he's going to be as sneaky. I think people are just always sort of fixated on him.
I mean, I think people are always fixated, kind of like we were talking about Josh Gordon. People love Tariq Cohen as well. It's pretty crazy to, like, when we talk about Allen Robinson, he's coming off that terrible injury. But, like, this was a guy a couple years ago we were drafting in the first round. Late first rounds, early second of fantasy drafts. And he had a 1,400-yard season with 14 touchdowns just a few years ago. He's still only 25. I think he's going to have a big year. I think he's going to have a big game. 330 passing yards from this, so the Seattle secondary that has nobody other than Earl Thomas. I think we're going to see Thomas shade Allen Robinson's way more often than not, right?
You'd think so.
That could be a little scary. I think a sneaky, maybe not sneaky because it's only one game. We saw Taylor Gabriel have huge games last year. 5 targets. Obviously, the 25 yards weren't great, but he had 5 receptions. So in a PPR format, that doesn't bury you, especially on a slate where every position is slim. Yeah, every point counts and every position is so slim. Mm-hmm. I think Gabriel has huge play potential here. He played 60 of 70 offensive snaps last week, so he's going to be on the field, which is very, very encouraging. He's definitely the number 2 receiver, and he showed that week 1. So I think Gabriel is a nice option if you don't have the money to pay, because we're gonna play Jordan Howard, we're gonna play Russell Wilson, probably most likely. So it's good. The money's gonna be scarce. So I think I'm blanking. I just said his name.
Taylor Gabriel.
Taylor Gabriel is a solid play.
Yeah, I like him. I think Anthony Miller is going to be an interesting little pivot there, too. A guy that a lot of people were big on as sort of a sleeper. 3 targets, 2 catches there, but he's also uber cheap. So, again, trying to differentiate yourself there. And I think Chicago's defense, I think a lot of people tend to sort of stack position players in these type of formats, thinking that, they're going to get, the points. If points get scored, you lose points for your defense. But, like I said, Khalil Mack added to that defense. They had 4 sacks, an interception, and a fumble. They got to Aaron Rodgers last week and pretty much almost knocked him out of the game. Didn't, because he came back and, whatever they gave Aaron Rodgers for pain management, he managed to come back and beat them. But, for me, I think this defense could have a lot more success against Russell Wilson. I know he's more mobile. He's probably not more mobile than Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers is a pretty mobile quarterback, but that offensive line's so bad. I just think the Chicago defense is something worth considering tonight if you're playing those, showdown 1-game GPPs on either site tonight.
Right. And against Denver last week, Wilson threw 3 picks and fumbled twice. So it's not like, it's not like he's, like you mentioned, the offensive line is not good. And this Bears defense is nasty. The addition of Mack, it's just nasty.
And you have to assume that they're going to be behind, so they're going to have to throw a lot, which gives the Chicago defense more opportunities to get those interceptions, touchdowns, and sacks. So.
Right, and it gives you, we only have 6 slots on our team, and they're only $4,000. So it's like a nice little cheap contrarian way to go. If they get you, let's say they get you 14 points like they did last week, right? They might even get a better. They got 14 points against Aaron Rodgers. Now we're getting a beat up Seattle team. They could put up maybe 20. At their peak. That's going to win you a tournament because no one's going to play them.
Right. Yeah. So on FanDuel, it looks like they don't give you the defense to pick. That's unfortunate because I do think Chicago's defense is worth looking at. But aside from that, I kind of agree with you there. They're going to put some pressure on Wilson. I'm expecting a lot of. How do you feel about kickers because you can roster kickers.
I was just looking at the same thing. I mean, maybe because the total is so low, we're going to see more field goals, instead of drives finishing in touchdowns. So I think, again, you have to be contrarian somewhere. You can't just pick, okay, Russell Wilson, Jordan Howard, Brandon Marshall. You have to do something a little different somewhere. So, I mean, Cody Parkey?
Yeah, had 11 points in week 1, 3 for 3 in field goals. Both extra points.
I mean, again, you could do Janikowski too, because we know the leg is insane. So if you want to, we could get a 55-yard field goal from Janikowski out of any time he steps on the field, because he's insane. He's a bar goer that also kicks. He's like the guy from The Replacements. That's how I've always envisioned Sebastian Janikowski. But yeah, I think you could play a kicker. You got to be different, right? I think our tight end whisperers call of Nick Vannett could come to fruition a week later than he anticipated. I mean, he only saw 2 targets, but Will Dissly, I'm just like, the more I think about it, like the more I just like he's still. I mean, I know he's the second tight end. Like Seattle released their depth chart for this week, and Dissly's the number 1 tight end, but. I mean, maybe we get a sneaky Vannett touchdown. I think that could be a different way to go as well.
I mean, it would only be the true fantasy way that
right.
everybody gets swerved on who they think is going to be the guy. So, that's not too surprising. So I kind of agree with you there. I don't think this game's going to be close. I'm a little bit surprised, really, to see the spread. It's only 4.5 points favoring Chicago. I think it should be a little bit more than that. It was actually 3 points. Earlier in this week, if any of you caught the Wager Alarm live stream with Howard and Craig Mish on Friday, they talked about how it was only 3 and that you should probably try to hit that line now because it was going to go up. It did, and they're going up to 4.5 points there. So I'm expecting Chicago to kind of win at home against a bad Seattle team. Love the defense. I might even slick that defense in my 1.5 points. You get a couple interceptions and some sacks and fumble recoveries tonight, and that's probably a way to differentiate. But yeah, so that kind of wraps up Monday's quick little podcast or live stream rather here of Monday's game, and talk about obviously Josh Gordon coming to the Patriots. We'll have another live stream coming at you later in the week with James, right? Or actually myself and Howard Bender.
Yeah.
The DFS watch list coming out on Wednesday, so be on the lookout for that. Good luck everybody in tonight's contests.
Later, guys.